Good afternoon. On today's Angry Bulletin, we are going to be discussing an article that just came out regarding SpaceX's plans at Cape Canaveral and just how absurdly hateful this article is when it comes to the future of spaceflight, just because of current prejudices against Elon Musk. And as all of you probably know, I am not inclined to always support everything Elon does. I can be harshly critical of SpaceX, but in this case, this article has gone too far and reflects the intense opposition that exists in the mainstream media against innovative spaceflight and the kind of consequences that this could mean for the American space program and our ambitions for the moon and beyond. All of this and more coming at you on the Angry Astronaut right now. Good afternoon, and once again, welcome to another reaction video here on the Angry Astronaut, and this one's going to be pretty biased and pretty aggravated when it comes right down to it. As I mentioned before, I can sometimes be critical of SpaceX and some of Elon Musk's decisions, but in this case, we have an example of the mainstream media just targeting Elon Musk's plans because he's, well, Elon Musk, without talking about just how much benefit some of his plans could potentially bring to the United States space program and to human civilization in general. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started on this article, which, by the way, popped up in Yahoo Finance of all things, but actually the article originally appeared in a periodical called Benzinga. So we'll just go ahead and get started. And just so you know, this isn't an isolated case. There's been a lot of articles out there criticizing SpaceX's plans for Cape Canaveral and Florida's Space Coast. But let's just go ahead and get started. Quote, Elon Musk's SpaceX has some truly ambitious plans for Florida's Space Coast, and they're raising serious concerns among the residents. The company wants to launch its enormous Starship rocket, a rocket taller than the Statue of Liberty, up to 44 times a year from the Kennedy Space Center. That's something that all of us are very familiar with. But that's just the beginning. According to TechCrunch, SpaceX is also eyeing a second launch pad right next door at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, where they plan to launch Starship an additional 76 times a year. That adds up to 120 launches per year within just a 6-mile stretch of the Florida coast. Okay, first of all, this is just alarmist talk. The current market can't support 120 launches per year of the biggest rocket in human history. Not even close. And by the way, what you're looking at right now is an incredible animation from Hayzegrayart of what a Starship launch might look like from Cape Canaveral, but it has a lot of incredible sound effects and incredible features that I'm not going to show you here. If you want to see the entire clip in all its glory, I've got it linked in the description. You definitely need to check out this guy's incredible animations. But let's go ahead and continue with what's going on. SpaceX is pushing forward with plans to make Florida's Space Coast the hub for its Starship rocket launches. And frankly, they have little choice if you consider the amount of opposition that they're facing at Boca Chica. That's my own addition, by the way. Standing of 397 feet tall, this rocket is key to Musk's dream of sending humans to the moon, Mars, and beyond. It's not just his dreams. When we're talking about the moon here, that's actually NASA's dream, not his. He wants to go to Mars primarily. The moon is part of the Artemis program. I'm just going to keep interjecting the facts into this article because, man, it sure needs them, but we'll continue. It's the most powerful rocket ever built, with the thrust equivalent of 160 Boeing 787 jets taking off at once, although what would probably have been better to say is about double the thrust of the space shuttle. In other words, yeah, more, but not ridiculously more than the types of rockets that have taken off on a regular basis from Cape Canaveral for decades. So here's the problem. While space enthusiasts certainly find this exciting, it's a different reality for the people living in Brevard County. What was once a quiet, sparsely populated area when NASA first launched rockets is now home to over 600,000 residents, a busy cruise industry, and vibrant neighborhoods. The idea of frequent rocket launches raises serious worries for those who live there. Residents are worried about the noise and vibrations these launches will bring because of the ship's 35 thruster engines. Okay, it's not 35, it's actually 33. Just keep going here, which translates into as much as 23 million pounds of force at takeoff. No. Not that much. Even 33 Raptor 3s at maximum thrust would generate a total of a little over 20 million pounds, and that's assuming they can actually achieve that. The highest thrust achieved by a Raptor 3 at this point has been 593,000 pounds of thrust. Now that could change any day, but still, probably not 23 million pounds of thrust at takeoff. The power of the Starship rockets is expected to shake homes, rattle windows, and disrupt daily life. Okay, again, a bit of an exaggeration. We're talking a few minutes every other day maybe, or every 5 or 6 days. Not nearly as disruptive as being, say, next to a major airport. The environmental impact is also a major concern, especially for the Indian River Lagoon, a delicate ecosystem home to various wildlife. This has been an ecosystem that NASA has been able to coexist with for over half a century without any serious problems, something that has been closely monitored for a very long period of time. Again, as you can tell, I'm interjecting my opinions here because this article is jammed with non-stop falsehoods and distortions. We'll continue though. Despite these significant concerns, residents find their voices aren't heard as much as they'd like. SpaceX's plans are moving forward with little input from the community, leaving many feeling like they have no say in what is happening in their backyard. Locals and environmental groups closely observe the situation, hoping someone will eventually take their concerns seriously. For now, though, it looks like the future of Florida's Space Coast will be shaped more by the big ambitions of a tech billionaire than by the desires of the people who live there. Okay, fortunately, this article is mercifully short, but we're getting articles like this all the time in the mainstream media about what's happening at Cape Canaveral, and it is nonstop absurdity. This region of Florida would not be what it is today without NASA. NASA helped kickstart the entire economy in the Titusville region of Florida, and even today, thousands and thousands of people's livelihoods in this region of Florida are dependent on NASA being there. And an increased launch cadence, especially of the largest rocket in human history, is going to create more jobs, not just for SpaceX, but for anything associated with the Cape Canaveral spaceport. You're going to have to be transporting these rockets to the spaceport. Increased security for an increased launch cadence. Also, the necessary housing and food and restaurants and entertainment for all of the new SpaceX employees that are going to be coming out to Cape Canaveral to support this kind of cadence for this kind of rocket. These things are going to be a very positive thing for this region, not a negative. And the complaints that we're getting here remind me very much of the people who decide to buy property right next to an active airport. And those same people gripe and bitch and complain about the noise until eventually local politicians who are more concerned about appeasing the needs, or perceived needs anyway, of razor-brained constituents who are not going to vote for them if they don't listen to them, well, they end up moving the airport, building a ridiculously expensive airport further out into the countryside, and guess what? People start buying housing and residential property right next to that airport, and the process starts all over again. We don't need this happening at Cape Canaveral. This is the one place in the entire continental United States, where it has been always understood that large rockets, loud rockets, intrusive rockets, when we're talking about our day-to-day lives, are going to be lifting off. When Saturn V's used to lift off at the height of the space program back in the late 60s and early 70s, well, those were very loud rockets too. And it's not like the space shuttle was particularly quiet. And if it sounds like that I really don't care terribly much about the concerns of these hundreds of thousands of residents who live in this region of Florida, well, it's because I don't. If they decided to live here, if they decided to buy property and to try to build their lives in close proximity to the largest spaceport on the planet, then they've got to expect space launches and everything that comes with it. And if there is a new burst of activity in the space industry, a new initiative that has the potential of putting human beings on the surface of the moon on a permanent basis, well, they've got to expect a lot more activity to go with an initiative like that. And it brings far more benefits to this region than it brings inconvenience. I really don't understand the concern and the opposition. And frankly, I really don't think that the opposition is quite as intense as the media is trying to paint it to be anyway. My uncle is a Titusville native. He lived in this region all his life, and once he got out of the Navy, he worked at NASA for his entire professional career, from the beginning of the Saturn program and the Apollo program all the way through to nearly the end of the shuttle program. And I'll tell you, both he and his colleagues, most of his friends, and their families lived in close proximity to lots of activity at the Cape for most of their lives. I myself got to see space shuttle launches up close and personal a number of times thanks to my uncle. And I'll tell you something, living close to a spaceport is far more exciting than it is inconvenient. And if you can't recognize that, then I really don't understand why you chose to live close to the Cape in the first place. Thank you very much for watching. I would like to thank the following incredible people: Joe Sullivan, Derek Conduit, Roger Evans, Anthony Carter, Arthur Long, Whitney Campbell, and new Patreon member Ian Calvert. Thank you so much for helping me get back across the Atlantic to cover the SpaceX Crew 9 mission for NASA, sending a new crew rotation up to the International Space Station next month. I'm about 2/3 of the way to being able to buy my plane ticket to get over there, so still have a bit of a ways to go, but still you guys have made an enormous difference for me. And incidentally, I just added a new Patreon exclusive video last weekend, and I'll be adding another one about a lunar space elevator concept this weekend. So if you'd like to take advantage of those benefits, all the details are in the description. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and as always, stay angry about space.